Honestly, it's a little frustrating to have to review games that look so delicious when you're counting calories, but let's jump into it. Wok and Roll from Origame is a roll and write game where you're making delicious Chinese dishes in your very own restaurant. It's for 1 to 5 players and plays in about 30 minutes. Now, I'll give you a brief overview on how the game works, but if you want to see an incredibly succinct and well-made how to play video, check out Cardboard Stacker. I'll link them in the description below, but honestly, Ferdinand's how to play videos on this it's top notch, so go ahead and check that out. The gist of the game is that you're trying to earn more points than everyone else. On a player's turn, they roll all 6 dice. Then they can choose some dice to keep and roll the rest. Then they can do it one more time, hopefully honing in on the dice faces that they need. The dice have icons representing various ingredients you'd need to create your dishes. Once the dice stop rolling, all players use the combination to start cooking. The active player gets to use all 6 dice, while every other player gets to use only the white dice when it's not their turn. Your restaurant is represented by your own dry erase board. You get to name it, and then you can cook away. The boards are segmented into different styles of dishes that require different combinations of ingredients. As the game progresses, you can unlock ingredients to go into storage to be used on later turns, earn points, or hone skills. Essentially, every single turn you're attempting to maximize your point potential, having to sort of look into the future a little bit to see which path is going to be best for your specific restaurant, because it may not be the same path that other players take. The game ends when one player completes 3 separate dishes, completing either an entire row or column of these dishes. Points are then tallied and whoever has the most points wins. First and foremost, let's take mechanisms and set them off to the side. Aesthetically speaking, as a product, I really like Wok and Roll. Everything from the box art, the cute iconography, the theme, the dice, the fact that the box itself is a dice tray and it's got its own little wok in there. Cool. Awesome. Something that I really like. And in recent years, I've really come to appreciate higher production values and just more attention to detail. It is a shallower element, and it's definitely not the most important thing for me when it comes to a game. But when a game is aesthetically pleasing, it is cool to me. And Wok and Roll is aesthetically pleasing. Now, that is next to nothing if the mechanisms don't work, if the game isn't fun. But sometimes that aesthetic can be the tipping point in choosing one specific game over another, especially if they're similar in theme, style, or mechanisms. Look, there are other roll and write games that use the Yahtzee mechanism where you roll some dice and then choose to re-roll some of them. Yahtzee being probably the most prominent one. But it is that Yahtzee mechanism and the ability to hone skills so that you can use some of the cookbooks as wild that alleviate some of the randomness that you're going to get in these dice games. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, every single player is subject to that randomness. But the fact that every player gets to choose at least 4 of the dice on any given player's turn helps alleviate some of that and kind of helps throw everyone in the same boat. The active player gets 2 separate dice that no one else can use. And those 2 extra dice make the difference in why your paths may not be exactly the same. So with the exception of the expert menu, all the boards are the same. And I'll get into that in just a second. So choosing a path on a board that is exactly the same isn't necessarily a new or novel idea, but it works really well in this implementation and is kind of cool thematically because you're running similar restaurants that may offer different menu options. And again, I'm a big fan when the theme works out well, and it did so here. And then you factor in the endgame condition. The game ends when one player completes 3 dishes. And so there's that element that you have to balance between, do you race to the finish or do you try to stave it off long enough so that you can earn more points? And you really have to keep a beat on what your opponents are doing. And balancing that out adds just another intricate layer into an otherwise fairly simple game. And sure, it is a fairly simplistic game, but there are 2 sides to the board, one being easier and one being the expert menu. The expert menu offers a few different interesting mechanics, especially the fact that each individual player has their own house specialty dish that they can make, and that switches every time you play. At the end of the day, it is a game where you roll dice and you use those dice as resources to maximize points. And it's fairly straightforward, and that simplicity is going to either be a bummer or a boon, depending on who you're playing with or who you're talking to. For me personally, I like that. And the addition of solo rules that are almost indistinguishable from the multiplayer game is a big plus for me and has solidified its place on the shelf because of that. And so with a fun theme, cute visual appeal, and mechanical simplicity, this has all the elements of a game that you would expect to see or hope to see on the shelves of any big store. And sure, we're getting more and more games into bigger stores, this one deserves to be right alongside them because it fits into a sweet spot of a game that I enjoy playing and I enjoy introducing people to. You may want something that's a little bit more complex. You may want some more variability. You may want, you may love this theme. You may love this look, but you may look at it and say, this is still just a little bit too simple. Well, there is the Korean Wave expansion, but I think that's a review for another time. Wok and Roll is a delightful little game. It's something that I thoroughly enjoy playing and would gladly play at any time. But again, we're going to talk about that expansion, and that's really what bumps it up a notch for me. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Follow me on social media. I am active on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and here on YouTube, all at Plumpy Thimble.